Yes, there we go. All right, third time's the charm, baby. Okay, I have to figure out how to play it, but can I shoot? Yeah. OpenAI has released GPT 5.2, which is listed here as the most advanced frontier model for professional work and long-running agents. Now, in this article, there's a bunch of information, there's benchmarks and things of the sort. Really, the TLDR of this is that it is better in all regards than the previous variant, which was GPT 5.1, which interestingly enough was just released right around a month ago. So this is a fairly quick iteration on top of that, not among that, I don't know what I was saying. But regardless, we have some benchmarks against itself right here. Something I note that is kind of missing from this article, at least in my own personal interest and opinion, is comparisons with other labs models, such as Claude Opus 4.5, Gemini 3 Pro, which a lot of rumors had said that this was a response to that specific model. Whether or not those are substantiated is out for debate. But regardless of that, it seems like a pretty impressive improvement. And I say that for two reasons here, at least in terms of things that really stuck out to me when looking at this blog post. The first is what we see right here, this ocean wave simulation. Now, this sort of thing is probably one of my favorite methods to test these models is by giving them prompts just like this, which supposedly is responsible for the creation of this result that we see right here. And really, this looks to be a very, very impressive result if it was generated with this prompt with just the GPT 5.2 thinking model. So it doesn't even seem like this was generated with the Pro variant or anything. I'm very impressed with what I see here, and this makes me kind of excited to go ahead and test this. They mention it being better at front-end software development, and I noticed that GPT, ever since, I don't know, the 5 family of models, they always use really dark color palettes when they're generating front-end things, at least in what I've seen in my testing. So it would be nice to kind of move away from that, as I'm not a huge fan of it. Aside from that, they mentioned something else interesting here that at least stuck out to me, which was the vision capabilities being increased. And the thing I really liked about this was the actual example they showed was kind of cool. So GPT 5.1 right here is just drawing some bounding boxes and labeling items on some low-res photo of a motherboard. The GPT 5.2 result we see on the right here is significantly more fine-grained. It has picked out even an LGA-style socket for the CPU. It's picked out far more kind of items in this, and if this is actually, I mean, I have no reason to doubt it. I just kind of have to say that to be safer than sorry. This looks like a really darn impressive capability, so perhaps we'll do some vision testing as well. Now, finally, the only other thing I want to bring up here before we just hop into hands-on testing, which I don't know if morbid is the right term for this, but it kind of was like, oh. So they mentioned that this can save enterprise users and things like that up to 10 hours a week, at least for heavy users. They say that it has broad domain knowledge spanning across 44 occupations, which is cool. So they're saying, hey, this model can save you time and make you more money. If you scroll down a little more right here, it goes into like, it can produce these outputs at greater than 11 times the speed and less than 1% of the cost of expert professionals. So up here, it's basically like, this will save you time. And down here, it's basically like, this will replace you, which I suppose could kind of lend to giving one more free time. Regardless of that, let's just go ahead now and start testing this model. When actually using this, there are a bunch of different ways to do so, and what I mean by that is we can leave it on auto, which makes it decide how long it should think based on how it judges the intricacies and complexity of the prompt it's given. We have instant, which means it will just give us an answer immediately. We have thinking, but then from within thinking, we also have 4 subsettings here for the amount of thinking time. So light, standard, extended, and heavy. And then finally, if you do have a pro subscription, or some folks had mentioned it's now available in a team subscription too, don't quote me on that, you can use the pro variant, which is extremely slow. And for that reason, I will not be testing this specific model in this video, the pro version, but the rest of them we can play with. I think to start out, we're going to start in auto and do the tried and true browser operating system test. Okay, I saw no chain of thought whatsoever, and I did just have it set to auto, so I suppose that just means the model was like, okay, I don't really need to think about this. It's fairly straightforward. All right, we've received our result here, and then it also did suggest that it can go ahead and extend this into a multi-file project, which for now I will hold off on, but I do appreciate the suggestion. So this was 1,200 lines of code, just in case anyone was interested. So let's go ahead now and take a peek at it. And I'm going to be looking for, all right, if this has this same kind of dark aesthetic that GPT has kind of been known for since the 5 series, it does. But that is not necessarily a bad thing. Let's start from first. So I'm going to close all of the windows and we'll assume that it opened to this blank screen. Things to check initially, the right click. How do you, okay, it was on auto thinking mode, so that's all right. Usually we want to see a right click there, but I'll give it a pass. Clock looks good. We can't click on that, nothing happens, but that is okay. And it actually shows us the date as well. That's actually very rare. I don't think I've seen that before, so points for that. We have a little online thing here. I'm not sure what the purpose of that is, but it looks all right, so I think I'm cool with it. Start. Okay, this looks fairly good. And let's just go ahead. Let's check our settings. This is sometimes where these become fairly potent, is the actual, like, sometimes they implement some pretty cool things. All right, so that's our visual accent. Okay, it did change. Now, the only place that I can see this actually changing is the little bubble on the start menu. So if we make it full white, we see that, and then we go to this yellow Mountain Dew color. So not bad. Reduce motion is an option, and then wallpaper. Cool. Okay. All right, so these buttons aren't working, but fortunately, it seems like they're working from within the start menu, so we'll just kind of ignore that. Let's see what commands we have here as a default. Okay, we have a decent amount. Let's take a peek at echo subscribe. Very good. Clear. But then I need to see the commands again. So, okay, let's see if the open app command actually works. That'd be interesting. All right, that's nicely implemented. That's pretty neat because it shows some actual like cross-referencing between different applications here, which is cool to see. Okay, this is for example purposes. Avoid use in operations. Understood. So we've gone to Wikipedia, which would work in this specific browser, and as we see, it does actually load right here. Let's try our full screen. This is not bad. We're using the web from within the web, if you will. I don't know that that makes sense. Today's featured article. George Mason in News, Australia. And then we can reopen it here, so things do get like pinned to the taskbar, which is good. All right, what else? What did we not try? I don't see a calculator, which is good because I'm not in the mood to try to do math on camera right now. We have files to do, build cool stuff, ship it. Welcome to Browser OS. Drag windows by the tile bar to resize. Neat. And the scaling here actually looks pretty nicely. When we make this smaller, the elements do kind of snap or change in dimension. Overall, I would call this a fairly solid result. For the next test, I want to do the 3D printer simulation test, where it essentially just makes a simulation of a 3D printer that can print a few various shapes in the web. Now, for this one, I do have thinking set, and I think we can keep it balanced thinking and speed versus thinks longer for complex question. I'm going to keep this one on standard, and then we'll kind of change these as we go in some of the tests. So we'll do extended thinking as well for a more difficult test. Before we even look at this result, I actually want to highlight something that I've noticed here in my sample size of 2 prompts that we've sent this. It does seem to actually give some pretty useful suggestions following some code generation right here. In this case, it actually said, if you want this to be more realistic, tell me which style of printer you want me to use. An Ender 3 bed slinger or Prusa MK3 Core XY. This is actually kind of cool and something I like seeing, so it seems they did try to make it more helpful, at least on the tail end of the responses, which I like seeing. Unbelievably, and I do say that kind of harshly, I would not have expected this from a massively improved model. We did get an error. Now, because I'm curious to see this result, I'm simply going to just paste the console result from Chrome, which will highlight some of what was causing that to not actually show up, and then we'll see this fix it. Both issues are real. Yeah, I know, I'm the one who pointed them out to you. No, I'm only like 10% kidding. Hypothetically, this will be a fixed result. All right, so I've just told it, hey, nothing's showing up. Here is the specific issue. So we'll see what it does now. All right, this is the final chance it's getting. Yes, there we go. All right, third time's the charm, baby. So now it's fairly dark, but we do have a nozzle right here. I can see we have the print bed as well. Everything is drawn relatively decently. This would appear to be some form of Core XY printer or something of the sort. All right, let's just start with a square. Ooh. The movement there is pretty smooth. Okay, so I think it drew the bed too high, but if we just kind of ignore that and focus on how it's actually doing it right here, if this, I'm going to say this is probably one of the best actual like results in terms of how it would look for this to actually be drawing the first layer of a print. Timeline 1%. This thing's really like, it's going hardcore. Let's speed this up and just kind of see. So it's doing infill. Okay, I don't know that the printer would, maybe this is very light infill. All right, let's speed our timeline up. Oh, wow. Okay, so this is really, this is going layer by layer to an extreme degree. And sadly, when we zoom in, it disappears, but that's just, it didn't fully like draw these things properly. That's actually, in some ways, this may arguably be one of the best results for this test, but the downside of that is it took 3 tries and there's still a lot of kind of glitchiness to it. So that's pretty good. That is truly layer by layer with infill. The final thing we haven't tested, let's do the triangle. And then I'll kind of speed things up. So it's just doing the same cross-hatch like infill pattern for all of these. But overall, this was a promising result in terms of how it actually went ahead and wrote the simulation, at least for how the object would be printed in reality. So that was interesting to see. I have now selected extended thinking, and we're going to ask it for a Python 3D first-person shooter. There are a few specified things here that we want to see, such as a functional minimap that shows the location of the enemies, visible trace effects on ammunition, and then player health and a menu screen with start and exit. All right, let's check out our Python 3D first-person shooter. It always does take a little bit of time for it to open if it's using Ursina, so this is to be expected. All right. So sadly, oh, okay. I think this is a very artistic result, as there is, oh, there are a bunch of enemies coming at me, as we can tell by the minimap, and I do seem to be able to shoot at them. The problem is that everything is the same colors. Well, I suppose this can evolve into a multimodal test of this model, being that they did say its vision capabilities were quite good. So it basically just looked at the image I gave it and I said, can you please tell me if you see anything blatantly incorrect here? And it did pick out everything that was wrong. So I'm now telling it to just go ahead and apply all fixes and generate the full script. I'm going to be totally honest with you. As of this point in the testing, please keep in mind that we've only tested like 3 things. So keep that in mind when I say what I'm going to say. But when I was kind of greeted with this absolutely beautiful result here that is really, really impressive, I'm kind of a little disappointed so far in what I've seen, just between the 3D printer result needing a bunch of tries to actually work, and then a first try with the Python test of a not necessarily super difficult prompt. Here's the second chance attempt at the Python first-person shooter game, keeping in mind we gave it a photo of this is worse. And I'm going to be honest with you right now, these aren't sponsored. I pay for these subscriptions myself, which I may or may not be second guessing at the current moment. If I'm greeted with this absolutely beautiful, fantastic result in the blog post for this model, I would not have expected this to fail completely in a 3D first-person shooter game in Python that's not necessarily very difficult, especially when other models that are not as potent have properly done that, as well as the 3D printer needing 3 tries. So far, I'm disappointed, and this is not something I normally feel. I'm going to put it on heavy thinking right here and give it the exact same prompt verbosely that it was given in that demonstration there. All right, so this is the exact same prompt with heavy thinking with GPT 5.2. There we go. Okay, so this is the sort of thing that I was really hoping to see with this model. This is not necessarily as impressive as what we saw in the demonstration of the blog post, but again, this is good. It works on first try. If we slow the wind speed, the waves do actually respond to that. We have the live thing right here. We can even change wave height. Okay, and it just kind of seems to change, like, that makes sense. Sun direction. This is good, and this is what I wanted to see. I mean, this would show an improvement definitely in, at least I don't know that 5.1 would have done as good of a job on this. So I suppose we can test it. I am curious, so I want to do a head-to-head test. I've changed it back to 5.1 thinking. We have heavy thinking set, so it is the same exact setting that we ran it in 5.2 right there. So let's see how this result differs from 5.2. So here is the result from 5.1 thinking with the same heavy thinking setting. And make note that at the end, it didn't actually give us any snippet of text following like additional suggestions and stuff. So that does seem like a prominently new feature for 5.2. So let's check the difference. Here's 5.1. Okay, well, this would highlight a significant difference in the capabilities of the model. Now, we do just also need to keep in mind when looking at this that this is a prompt that I have pulled from the actual announcement blog post of this model. So there could be kind of like, you know, but the difference here looks like, I mean, this looks like a Windows 98 versus Windows 7, the last good one. But you know what I mean, sorry. Okay, this is kind of what I wanted to see. This would be a significant leap. The downside of this is that is a prompt that was pulled from the release post. So now I just want to see that same level of quality with prompts that came from elsewhere. I'm going to now try the 3D Flight Combat Simulator game. This is a test that I've been doing a lot recently, and all of the models, at least from the state-of-the-art laboratories, are getting fairly good at doing this specific test. So this is the specific prompt that I've given to Claude, Gemini, previous versions of ChatGPT, even DeepSeek and things like that. So this should hypothetically produce a very impressive result. I do have heavy thinking right here, which, keep in mind, is the longest thinking selection that we have for this. Here's our Flight Combat Simulator result. Okay, so the UI elements do seem very similar if we look at the Ocean Wave Simulator, or at least the old one. This is very GPT-esque. I do see a 3D background here, all right? The statistics for these planes are very detailed, more so than any other result I've seen with this specific prompt, just in terms of all of the different things they give you. We have a jet, a propeller plane, and then a stealth drone. Yeah, UFO. So, all right, let's okay, I have to figure out how to play it, but all right, so I can, can I shoot? Yeah. So, all right, but the problem is I can't, oh, what the, oh, and that was the crash animation. Okay, I need to read the controls. Click mouse lock. W and S are throttle, A and D are roll, shift is boost. Mouse should have been pitch and yaw. I didn't get, all right, let's, so, oh, okay, so like barely, but this is actually kind of good, the trees and stuff. The big problem is I can't really like, there we go. Okay, this is just kind of difficult to play. And this one does also shoot. Round 2, 3 hostile aircraft. Ooh, actually the animation there when I got hit, the smoke style animation, was pretty good. Now the big problem with this, and this is really very difficult to play with the mouse. It like doesn't, whoa. All right, let's refresh this. We'll try our last, we'll try our stealth drone. And again, the big problem, oh, Jesus. All right, well, regardless of if there are some control issues and things like that, this is definitely more in line with what I wanted to see. And it's, Not bad. That was not bad at all. So I've just set it to standard thinking right now, which is just the middle one for balance, thinking, and speed. I have given it a simple wiring diagram of an Arduino with 2 sound level sensors and a 28BYJ stepper motor, as well as a breadboard and the motor driver board. And I'm asking it to go ahead and take this and turn it into an interactive educational simulation. The result must be contained within a single script and be something that can be opened in a modern browser. Everything else is entirely dependent on what the model wants to do. All right, it generated something and it's just giving me the option to download the file. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that. We'll show it in the folder. Yes, thank you. And then we'll take a peek at whatever it made right here. So it seems like it used the, okay, this is very good. This is very good. I'm very impressed with this. It's itemized these things almost with bounding boxes and named them. That is the driver board, the Arduino Uno, sound sensor 1, sound sensor 2 out to D3. We have the breadboard power rails, speed steps per second. So can we run this? Pause. Run. Okay, so I'm not seeing the motor actually. Show wires, hide wires. Pulse. This is an extremely impressive result. I'm very pleased with this. This almost makes up for the Python disaster. The motor's not spinning, but I'm going to give it a pass on that. It's the gold piece isn't. Why would the gold piece spin if it just reused the photo? My mistake. That's user error. So we actually see it spinning right here. It's hard to summarize this result, but for those looking at this, it's a good result. I'm very, very, very impressed with this. So I want to give the model basically full creative control. I do have it set to auto, so it will decide how long it needs to think, and all I've told it is to create the most aesthetically pleasing front end it can for Steve's PC repair. In the announcement post, they did mention that it has significantly improved front end capability, so I want to give it almost a blank slate with which to demonstrate that. So here is the most aesthetically pleasing front end for Steve's PC repair. Oh, good God. I don't mean that negatively. I mean like visually, I have become extremely overwhelmed by this result. All right, I suppose we'll just take it from the top, as they say. So we have some interesting cards with different features of Steve's PC. Your PC running like new. What a gradient. Without the headache. Explore services. Okay, that just brings us down. Typical turnaround. We have some statistics and why customers will want to choose us. Diagnostic fee is waived if you proceed with a repair. That works. You can change this policy text to match your business. Select a service. Very cool. Okay, so I've noticed here it seemingly has an issue with putting the properly colored text on the properly colored background, but we fill in our name, we fill in our contact information, details, Windows 11 slow boot. Yeah, that sounds about right. Request appointment, reply within 1 hour, local pickup drop off. See pricing. We have our pricing cards right here. We have fake customer testimonials. We have services. This is very feature packed. All right, let's take a look at some of these fake testimonials. Malware removal and crash diagnostics. Blue screens every day. Steve traced it to a faulty operating system and put Linux on my computer. No, it didn't say that, but do you offer pickup and drop off? Yes. Will I lose my files? Probably not. How long does it take? Don't know. Do you repair Macs too? This site is branded for, okay, that's only like lore. If you watch the channel, thank you, and you'll be familiar with some of the Mac hating Steve. Reach Steve, I've never seen that. All right, back to top. This was quick estimate. I love it. This was quite feature packed. I missed one thing. The dark mode toggle does actually work. I don't believe I've seen a non-browser operating system result that has a working dark mode toggle like this. So that was pretty cool. I'm not a huge fan of how this looks without dark mode enabled, but regardless, the fact that it implemented and it did do it properly, and now we see that this submenu does actually work as opposed to in dark mode when it was a little harder to see. I'm impressed. Overall, that's going to conclude our first look and testing of GPT 5.2. I have to say, some of the results were very impressive. Mainly this Arduino simulator just totally sold me. Aside from that, the flight combat simulator, although difficult to play and perhaps with some questionable shooting effects, was pretty darn cool and definitely had a lot of potential, just like we see here. And again, the ocean wave simulation direct test between 5.2 and 5.1 was an extremely stark contrast. That was cool to see. The Python first-person shooter was a total disaster and something that was relatively disappointing in my opinion. The 3D printer simulation was half disappointing, half not disappointing, because it actually did a fantastic job of going and really properly emulating how a 3D printer would do some of this, including very, very good infill. And then, of course, we had a functional, semi-functional browser OS. So overall, I don't know 100% what to say. It seems like sometimes it's really quite good and very impressive, and then other times not so much. I don't know if that means... Who knows if this was scheduled to be released now, or if the rumors are true that Gemini 3 Pro pushed this release to be sooner. Regardless of that, I think this model is good, but I do wonder if it needs a little more kind of like fine-tuning, if you will, not in the literal sense, to be absolutely stellar, because some of these results were very different from one another. Basically, in terms of the quality that we experienced with things like the Python game, as opposed to something like this ocean wave simulator, it does not even seem like the same model produced those same results. So it was interesting. Overall, it's a new model, it is state-of-the-art, and it's cool to see progress continuously happening in competitive states. So with that, that's going to conclude this video. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments, and thanks for watching.